Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. It is approaching evening here in New York City. It's already dark at 6:01, and to the right of me, we have the famous president of the California Jazz Conservatory, Nick Phillips. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
But better known or equally known to our audience as the independent producer for many of the craft recordings box sets that you love, or you love to complain about, one or the other. We are here to talk about two great reissues or great complete sets. Wes Montgomery, the complete full house recording, which is phenomenal, and Hothouse, which is the original complete jazz at Massey Hall. And I want to talk about this first. When I was a kid and I was just getting into jazz, this was a record that, like, my first drum teacher said, you have to get this because it has Max Roach. It's the only recording of these guys together: Max Roach, Bud Powell, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Mingus, and Charlie Parker. And
Right.
the cleanup job alone on this is just phenomenal. If you buy like the average Charlie Parker recording now, it's been around since the 70s, most of them sound horrible. And it's, Verb should reissue a bunch of those Parker recordings, with the full Nick Phillips experience or Kevin Gray treatment or whatever.
Right.
This thing just sounds great. It's 3 discs. The first disc with the bass as it was originally recorded, and then the third disc with Charles Mingus overdubs, and then a really revelatory second disc where you can really hear the beauty of Bud Powell. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And then the liner notes and the information they sort of shed on this. But tell me about your impressions of this, and I can stop blathering.
Well,
why'd you do this now?
I want to come back to your comments about the audio cleanup. A lot of credit also goes to Paul Blakemore, who did a lot of work with the audio restoration, because these tapes have a lot of dropouts and a lot of sonic anomalies. So I think he did a spectacular job cleaning things up, and then Kevin Gray, of course, cutting the lacquers, did a great job as well. But it's been a real thrill for me to dig back into this music as a result of working on this project. I'm also a jazz trumpet player, and hearing Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker just spur each other on to new heights is amazing. And not to mention the performances of the other 3 members of the ensemble. But I also think, I prefer listening to these recordings without the bass overdubs, notwithstanding the fact that Mingus was reportedly dissatisfied with the level of the bass, which is low on those recordings.
Why do you prefer it without the bass overdub?
I just think it sonically, it just sounds a little purer and more pristine. I think what he probably, the only way I can imagine he was able to do it was he had to take the original tape and record onto another tape machine while he was overdubbing the bass part to come up with the master that was then released on the debut 12-inch LP, Jazz at Massey Hall. And so the sonics are just better without those bass overdubs. You don't have a generation of tape loss. You hear more of the ambience of the hall. But whatever your preference, without bass overdubs or the way Mingus wanted it with his bass overdubs, you have both of those represented in this set.
I like the bass overdubs, but they're too loud.
That's what happens when the bass player is
right.
in charge of producing it.
I mean, it's great to hear him play all these things, and a couple times kind of plays over the endings to add like a blah-da-da-da kind of attitude. But yeah, you do hear the tape loss, but I think I like it better with the added bass. It kind of drives harder.
Well, so and I prefer the other, and we now have both versions that we can enjoy. But there are also, in my opinion, to my ears, there are some moments where, with the bass overdubs, Mingus is maybe pushing a little ahead of the rest of the band, or just not quite locked always in the same pocket. And that's, if you're in a studio trying to play to something that already happened and you're trying to overdub your part into it, of course that can happen.
Yeah, and I go back to this is one of the best sonic cleanup jobs I've ever heard. I mean, obviously there was dropouts, so he did some sort of digital fixes or something, or did he? Or he must have. There's something digital happening because it's just remarkable.
Yeah, well, no, to clean up dropouts like that, you really do have to go into the digital domain, because if you're just going direct from an analog tape to a lacquer, I mean, you can obviously you do compression and EQ, but there's nothing you can do to get rid of the dropouts. So that all has to happen in the digital domain. So whether or not you're a fan of high-res digital, and certainly in terms of a project like this, where you're talking about really old master tapes that have a lot of issues with degradation and dropouts due to the hands of time, I think it's really good to be able to go in and repair as many of those things as you can for just a more cohesive listening experience. Now, that said, if you're talking about an analog tape that's in good condition and you don't have dropouts, then of course the preference is always to go from the analog tape right to lacquer. It's just, it's a shorter path of things to happen. But I'm glad we approached it this way for this collection, because I do agree with you. I think it really did improve the quality of the sonic presentation.
It's remarkable.
In this particular case,
I remember this from the 70s, and it basically, that record sounded like a shadow compared to this. I mean, the recording is amazing. You can really, there's like a party atmosphere going on, because you can hear Dizzy Gillespie kind of talking, or maybe it's Bird, and the audience is incredibly responsive. I mean, they are having a blast.
Yeah, this recording really has that circular energy happening of the performers to the audience feeding that energy back to the stage. And it's amazing that the energy level was that high, actually, because the venue, the concert was very poorly attended, because when the Jazz Society, I think it was the Toronto Jazz Society, booked this concert, they didn't consider the fact that there was a world championship heavyweight boxing match that night. And so a lot of people didn't turn out to the concert, so they lost a lot of money on this concert. And there's even the story about some of the musicians' checks bouncing afterwards, all of that kind of stuff. So
Disney got paid many years later, apparently.
Well, and I guess in a way you could say Mingus got paid by taking the master tapes and releasing them on his own debut records label. But there are all kinds of interesting stories about that night and leading up to that night and what happened afterwards. And in the liner notes, we have two sets of liner notes with this reissue. One is an eyewitness account of someone who was there that night. And then the other, the liner notes were written by David Scharf, who was the son of one of the Jazz Society members that presented the concert, a guy named Alan Scharf, who was also one of the photographers that night. And so he recounts stories that his father had told him many times over the years about this special night in jazz history.
And that really comes across, and the liner notes are great. One of them talks about how the fight is going on and there's a TV backstage, so Dizzy keeps leaving the stage and going to the fight. It's Rocky Graziano and someone else. And then after the first set, Bird disappears and goes across the street and starts drinking scotch, apparently. And he was amazed that when Bird comes back, there's no change in his playing. He's just, and this is a great example of Bird's playing. He's just on fire. And it's also interesting, and I sort of forgot, it's not purely just a bebop record. They're also doing standards, and by the time it gets to the disc 2, where it's really featuring Bud Powell, it is just, it's not any bebop there with Cherokee, which is not
well, really, as far as the repertoire perhaps, but the playing is 110% bebop.
And that's true. Yeah. But they're not doing confirmation and now's the time and all that. It's a very amenable to an audience who would know the standards.
Yeah, and to your point, kicking it off with Perdido,
right.
more swing oriented standard is.
Yeah,
But
and it's great to hear Max Roach so clean and clear. He takes of the drum conversation a 4-minute solo on side C of disc 2, and it, I don't know why, but it just really shocked me how grandiose and full and celebratory Bud Powell sounds on here. And the liner notes say he's totally out of it while on the performance.
that's what they said. I mean, that's what everyone said. I wasn't there. I don't know. We're taking it, everyone at their words for that. But, he had gotten out of a mental institution, and then you have Charlie Parker playing a white plastic alto saxophone because he had reportedly pawned his other saxophone, and it's just all kind of like the odds were against this being an amazing recording, which it turned out to be. But I don't know, maybe despite or because of all the crazy stuff that was happening, maybe there was just a certain kind of energy that night. But I've really enjoyed digging into this project, and it just made me a fan of the whole concert all over again, working on this project.
Yeah, and it's just a real revelation of what the record was. I remember the original cover. It was sort of a weird colored cover. I mean, it was nothing.
Well, it was black and white, but I don't have a copy of the original cover with me. But
it was strange.
It was like a big black and white photo of Charlie Parker that wasn't very clear, and
I remember a different cover, like depicting a stage or something.
Oh well, there have been different reissues over the years. So but the original 12-inch release that came out on Debut Records had that black and white cover, but then it was reissued under the title "The World's Greatest Jazz Concert" or something like that. You might remember, and that had a photo or an illustration of Jazz at Massey Hall with, like, if I remember correctly, kind of the roof being blown off of the hall.
Wow. And yeah, just overall, it's such a impressive, and it sounds so immediate, and it's such a great recording. When was it released? It's been out a bit, right?
This particular reissue?
Yeah. Right.
This came out in November, so it's not been out that long.
Right. And the only photos surviving from the date are the ones the fellow took, right, of Powell and Parker?
Well, there were three that I'm aware of, three photographers.
I guess that's one of them, right?
Yeah, so there was Alan Scharf, there was a guy named Duncan Scheidt, and then there was Harold Robinson, I think. I should open this and find out, refresh my memory who the photographers were. But yeah, there aren't any other photos that I know, or at least none surviving that I'm aware of, besides those three guys.
It's so and the whole thing about Parker laughing. He's laughing in this photo. When the guy,
the story, this. Did you read the story in the liner notes about why he's laughing? So Alan Scharf wanted to take a picture of Charlie Parker, and he said, and Mingus was up on stage nearby, just noodling on the piano, playing the piano. And so Alan said, "Hey, Charlie, can I take a picture of you talking to Charlie Parker?" And Mingus thought he was talking to him, and Mingus said, "Oh yeah, sure." And so then Alan Scharf awkwardly turned around and took a picture of Mingus, and it was apparent to Charlie Parker what was happening, that he meant to take a picture of Charlie Parker, and that's why he was laughing at that moment.
And he's laughing in that photo too. He's just giggling.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, granted, he and Dizzy are old friends, but this is the last recorded performance of the two of them together. Then Parker's dead 2 years later. That's what it says in the liner notes. And
or at least the last authorized recording. At least
okay, and
there've
then
been one or two little bootlegs before they were on a track or two or something.
wow.
But you mentioned earlier it's the only recording, at least that I'm aware of, or anyone's aware of all five of these guys playing together at the same time.
And where were the so the side C and D, which really features Bud Powell, that was just on the tape all this time?
Well, that had come out on a separate album, a Bud Powell at Massey Hall project. So it wasn't presented together with the quintet stuff. They were released as separate albums. And in fact, much of the material had been released even before that on 10-inch LPs. But there were some tracks missing from the Bud Powell release, and the Max Roach drum solo was released on yet another album. And so this brings all of that material from that night that was recorded by these five guys anyway. There was also a big band that that performed that's not included here because the focus is on, you know, these guys, not the Canadian big band that was required by the Canadian Musicians Union to be on the bill as well.
And this would have been a half-inch, quarter-inch tape?
I think this was just quarter-inch. Yeah.
Right. And where was this tape? In the Concord vaults?
Yeah, it's in the Concord vaults. This stuff's in the Concord vault down in LA.
Mingus is such a volatile person. I'm surprised he didn't take the tape and burn it or something, you know.
Well, and there was the risk of that he would destroy the tapes. I mean, when you read the liner notes, there was a telegram that was sent saying, "Don't let Mingus destroy the tapes. Don't let him erase the tapes." That's kind of the way the liner notes start out.
Right. And then why the packaging is really beautiful, and I haven't seen this before on any contemporary, I don't mean label, but modern reissue, this nice hard sleeve. What's the origin of that, and why did you do that?
Well, this was just the creativity of the art director for this project from Craft Recordings, Christopher Leckie, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, totally.
You know, but it's just an added little touch to make it that much more special, you know?
Yes, it's a really nice idea, but does that raise the cost across the board to do something like that? Much, or?
I'm not sure how much it raised the cost. I mean, I always start with a budget and a list price that we're working toward, you know. So as long as we're not exceeding the budget that I've been given, we have some latitude, the art person and I have some latitude to come up with some creative ideas as far as the packaging goes, as long as it's going to fit the budget.
Is this a limited edition pressing?
Most likely, pretty much with everything, these kind of deluxe packages that I work on with Craft, to do a repress would be a smaller run, and then the per unit cost goes up. So often, even though it may or may not be marketed as a limited edition, often these kind of deluxe projects I do with Craft Recordings, they just end up being limited editions because they typically do not repress after they run out.
Wow. I mean, this is such a, there was a Record Store Day release, not the most previous, but the one before it, of a Charlie Parker with an Afro-Cuban big band in New York. And he sounds amazing with that and really clean and clear. But so many Charlie Parker records haven't been reissued. And even some that have, like Live at Big Nick's, just sound horrible.
Live at St. Nick's. Yeah, that one sounds awful.
Sounds horrible. And that's a readily available one that's always been available. It's very hard to find those Verve recordings, and some of those are really schlocky with schlocky strings on them. Now, Verve, is that something you could reissue? Is that
I don't do projects for Verve. Not that I couldn't conceivably, but Craft Recordings keeps me pretty busy. You know,
does Concord own Verve?
Concord does not own Verve.
Okay, all right. I get confused on who owns what.
And with my job at California Jazz Conservatory, which is a full-time job, and my part-time work with craft recordings, that's pretty much all I can handle.
You need a job on the weekend. You should go work at a record store on Saturday.
Like in my free time.
Well, let's talk about this. Is equally amazing and revelatory. Wes Montgomery, the complete Full House recordings. I mean, and this also has kind of a party atmosphere. It's such a small room. And in the liner notes, I think this said the room closed like 3 months or within a year after this recording.
Yeah, it was called Subos, and then after that, it changed to another club that presented more like folk music, and it doesn't exist anymore. This club,
Right, right.
but yeah, it's in front of an enthusiastic live audience, and one of the cool things about this project is that if you open it up, there are all these rare previously unpublished photos of actually from that evening,
Right.
that were taken by Jim Marshall. So when Mason Williams reached out to Jim Marshall at Craft Recording, Mason Williams was senior vice president of A&R at Craft Recordings. He contacted Jim Marshall's representative and discovered that they actually had a number of photos that we had never seen. So it was really cool.
Yeah, they're really great photos. And you can see Wally Heider. Is that Wally Heider? Even though his face.
Yeah, he's kind of a blurred.
Right.
Man in motion at the recording console, kind of blurred out, which gives a sense of the activity and the emotion from that evening.
I just think of
see Orrin Keep News there. And,
right. Oh, that's Orrin Keep News. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Talking to Wes. Right.
yeah,
And Wally Heider, his name was on so many records in the 70s that people were recording in California. That's a really familiar name. So apparently he was doing jazz as well. But to hear Wes and Johnny Griffin just blowing through these things, and all three LPs are just exciting, and the sound is really fantastic. I mean, it's not a little bit better, it's like crazy better. And I'm always not happy about some of the reissues in the jazz world today, but this is a real really something. I mean, it's so clean and boom, and has tons of dynamics.
yeah,
It's very exciting.
yeah. Some really fiery performances, and even even though the alternate takes, you can understand why the takes that were chosen as the master takes were the right choices. Because some of the alternate takes are a little more raggedy in terms of the unison heads and the hits and everything, but the fire and the energy and the solos of all of the takes is just amazing, and
Like a bullet train. And my friend Bill Mulkowski wrote the liner notes, and I didn't know this. He says that Wes could basically take this thumb and pull it all the way back, so he was double jointed and touching.
Yeah, he was double jointed.
Astonishing, which much explained how he was able to play some of these incredibly fast solos just using his thumb. It's just Charlie Parker and Wes Montgomery. There's not enough Wes, like all those early Wes records before this on Riverside haven't really been given the full treatment, and they're hard to find in general. So both of these releases sort of help restore and hear the real artist to their full beauty, really. So it's important stuff.
Yeah, and I hope we're able to do some more deluxe Wes Montgomery reissues like this.
What do you have in mind?
I mean, of course, you gotta find alternate takes that are of a high enough quality performance wise. I wouldn't ever want to reissue anything where I think that the artist would be embarrassed to have the public hear it. And I'm particularly sensitive to that, being a musician myself. But that said, even Wes Montgomery on his worst day is better than so many other guitarists on their best day,
Yeah, this record really captures his full tone, very glistening sound, his effortlessness at playing. The whole thing's it's really fun and really exciting to listen to. What else are you already moving towards other, you must be craft recording sets that you have coming out. Can you tell us anything?
I can tell you I can't really give you specifics because they haven't been announced with press releases yet, and I can't get ahead of the marketing department. But I'm working on a number of projects for 2024 and 2025 and even beyond. So I'm working on a Miles Davis project that's scheduled for release in 2024. Bill Evans project that'll come out in 24 or 25, a Monk project that'll be 2024 or possibly 2025, another Charlie Parker project, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So
That's exciting. I think the first time we spoke was for that beautiful Bill Evans sort of overview that had the velour cover. Remember
oh
that?
yeah, I have it right here. Hold on.
That is the coolest set. I mean, it's CDs, but it's so beautiful. Look at that.
Yeah, that's
Can't quite-
everybody still digs Bill Evans.
Right. That's
It's
really
a
good.
career spanning collection. So not only Riverside and Fantasy, but also Warner and Verve.
Can people
tracks.
still find that? Because that would be a heck of a Christmas present.
I don't know if it's still in print, but
You don't have to look it up. That's all right.
yeah, it would make a great gift for any Bill Evans fan for sure.
So how, going forward, will Nick Phillips be able to apply himself to what we expect from Nick Phillips now that he's running president of the California Jazz Conservatory? I'm sorry. And where is that located?
It's in Berkeley, California, where this West Montgomery project was recorded.
Oh, that's interesting.
And actually where also Fantasy Records was located. So when Concord bought Fantasy Records in the early 2000s and all those great labels like Prestige and Riverside and Pablo and Milestone and Stax and Fantasy that were already housed under the Fantasy umbrella, I then moved into the Fantasy building at 10th and Parker. So it's something of a homecoming for me also. I don't know if you recall, but back in the late 80s, we had launched a solo piano recording series live at Maybach Recital Hall, and we did more than 40 volumes of that. That was recorded right here in Berkeley. So
how long is the California Jazz Conservatory? That's hard for me to say for some reason. I don't know why. California. How long is it? When was it founded?
It was founded by Susan Muscarella in 1997. And when it was founded, it was simply called the Jazz School, all one word. And
easier to say, Nick. Just go back to that.
Well, but that was a community music school, which still exists. So the Jazz School provides courses and workshops and performance opportunities to jazz students in the community of all ages, from that junior high kid that's just learning to play to the trumpet to that retiree that's got a little more time on their hands and is rekindling their passion for jazz and dusting off their piano. But Susan Muscarella then also founded the California Jazz Conservatory degree program. And so that's the only accredited private music conservatory in the country solely devoted to jazz.
Really?
You add that with the community music program and our performance venue, and it's this really amazing jazz community that I've walked into here.
How many students?
I've lost count. We have 20 in the degree program, but a whole lot more in the community music program.
And what is your overriding goal, or role rather?
Well, my role is I'm the president of the California Jazz Conservatory, so I report directly to the board of directors. And
so what does that entail day to day, you doing?
It's more like, what doesn't it entail day to day? I'm working on increasing enrollment in our degree program, growing the community music program. I'm working on partnering with other jazz organizations in the Bay Area to kind of strengthen the jazz community here in the Bay Area. We have SF Jazz just across the bridge, which is an amazing jazz organization. We have Living Jazz right over here in Oakland. So yeah, what we're just this with when you have the youth program and the high school kids that are studying jazz here, and then our degree program, then the adult students that are pursuing their passion. It's an amazing jazz community here.
Can I say that people can reach you or follow you, Nick Trumpet at Instagram? Is it okay to put that in there?
Let's see. I don't know if that's my Facebook is
That's easy to find. I found you on
under
Facebook.
the name Nick Phillips Music. That's my Facebook.
Right.
I
You're
can
okay
be
with
found on.
you're okay with having
Yeah,
this information out there?
yeah. People can follow me there for sure. Yeah.
And you're Nick Trumpet at Instagram, unless there's some other guy named
I
Nick
don't
Trumpet.
remember. I don't remember what I am on Instagram, but if you see someone that looks just like me on Instagram, then that's probably me. And then, I have my LinkedIn page, and then our California Jazz Conservatory website is cjc.edu. So you can go there and follow all the things we're doing in terms of all the courses we're offering and the concerts and all the other things we have happening. And then the California Jazz Conservatory also has a Facebook page that people can follow. And likewise with Craft Recordings, they have a website, craftrecordings.com. They have a Facebook page. So I encourage everyone to follow all of those and so
Right.
you can come up with what's happening.
These are two of the best things you've ever done. These are really great. To really hear these artists at their peak, that was such great fidelity, is really something. So thank you so much, and thanks again for speaking with me, Nick. Congratulations
pleasure.
on a new gig.
Thank you so much, Ken. Always a pleasure.
Likewise, sir. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.